Hi, I'm Shobit Narang, and today on Balcony Ticket, I have Nikhil D'Souza with me. Nikhil, so happy to have you.
Thanks so much, man. It's a pleasure being here.
I'm super excited for this conversation, so I'll jump right into it. Nikhil, first tell me, what would an ideal day in life of Nikhil D'Souza look like, from morning to evening?
Well, I think the most ideal day for me would be a rather peaceful one, actually. It would just be, you wake up and you're feeling amazing, like you're motivated to do something, like you're motivated to write something or work on an idea that just pops into your mind. Sometimes when you're asleep, you get ideas in your head, you get like melodic ideas. A very ideal day would be when you wake up and you remember that melodic idea that was in your head in the night. But other than that, I say the most ideal day is to wake up fresh and just be in the mood to write something and to create something. And then it would be have a great lunch at my folks' place. That would be an ideal lunch. And it would also be followed with a really good run at the park near my house, which is quite an important part of my day also. And if I can hit like say 5 kilometers, then I'm having a really good day, and the rest of the day would be, it would just pass on peacefully, and it would probably end with a really nice TV show. Sometimes we are all in that phase where we watched everything that's there and you're like, there's nothing remaining now, there's nothing to do, what do I do? But then you stumble onto something like The Queen's Gambit, for example, which I just saw very recently. And that was a pleasure to watch. So a nice ideal evening would end with, a couple of episodes of one of those things. So that's, I'm sorry, it sounds boring, but that's an ideal day. It's not too intense. It's not too boring. That's my ideal day.
Lovely. My understanding of music is very limited, so just bear with me. Tell me, what does the song creation process look like? Do you compose the music first and then write the lyrics, or is it the other way around?
So it works differently for different people. People write songs in a different fashion. Some people are very lyrical. They like to flesh out an idea, and so they basically just keep writing and writing and writing and writing, and then they kind of put a tune to it. In those cases, though, you are kind of restricted with, say, how many words per sentence and the phrasing and everything. So a lot of those songs turn out to be almost spoken, almost lyrical. Mm-hmm. For me, I come from the other direction. I always like to, I'm melody first. For me, the things that grab me first in a song are a strong melody and an evocative, like at least, a good voice to carry it through. Right. So for me, I normally start with a melody. If it's a melody that's in my head, and then I, put it on a phone. And my test is, then I listen back to it the day after or 2 days later. And if it still sticks in my head, it's a good melody. Right. So, yeah. And usually what happens is with a strong melody, there are words that just fall into place for that tune. They just feel right for that melody. Right. So usually I stick with that, and I try to ask myself, why am I singing this? The human mind is not all chaos. There's certain reasons you're singing certain things. They might seem random, but they're really not. They're coming from somewhere a little deeper. So I try to ask myself why I'm saying that or singing that, and then try and build on it, try to work on it from the point of view is this melody a chorus melody, or is it a verse melody? Or more interesting, is it a pre-chorus melody, which is like in between the two? You sing, a song has a verse, but then it has a small section just before the chorus, right, which kind of acts like a small little bridge to preempt the chorus. So that's a pre-chorus, and I love making pre-chorus melodies because you can go either way from there. You can go back, create a verse, or you can create a chorus out of it. So. My creative process is essentially that, like a melody first. The lyrics come based on the emotions that the melody pulls out. And then I either work on it completely myself, or then I have help with, I write with other people also. Right. Into fleshing out those melodies. And as of the last year or so, my friend Pinky Poonawala has, stepped in and helped me to write Hindi lyrics, because obviously I'm quite, I think mostly in English, and I can only, work in terms of concepts, and then Pinky comes in and then, puts them in words and, and many other things. So, yeah.
Right. This practice of co-writing and writing with someone else is something that you have spoken about in the past as well. So what's that process like? What's the greatest benefit of co-writing?
I think the greatest benefit of the first thing about co-writing though is to admit that someone else might have a different perspective, a different opinion on a song or something. It's like and allowing that opinion in, and understanding that you can have probably something that might be even better than what you set out to make it. Right. So as long as you don't let ego come in the way, co-writing can happen. I found that out. So the very first time I tried it out was I went all the way to Nashville, and I was writing with, I was set up for like a week of writing with this guy called Jeff Cohen, who eventually I wrote a lot of songs with, but that was 1 week. We were just trying it out to see if anything could happen. And I played him some melodies, and I played him the song Still in Love that I was working on. I'd worked out like the first verse, and I'd worked out the chorus, and I was stuck somewhere in the second verse. I was I was writing very poetic things, but somehow it was not coming together into a story of some sort. So Jeff was the person who kind of showed me that path, is about how the entire song must tell a story. It can't just be like you're just trying to describe one emotion, and it's just like random lines to describe that one thing. And that sometimes I feel a lot of songwriters get stuck in that. They just come up with 10 different, not different, also very similar ways of saying the same thing, and that becomes a song, and it doesn't really go anywhere. So Jeff was the one who showed me how it could make up a story of some sort, and then with say a bridge section, you can take it somewhere else. You can bring in a third perspective, or you can actually make the audience say, is that what you were saying all along? So that's what we did. But it came from experience. It's like you can't write a song if you've never experienced that. So we were talking all about this girl, and about how I Still in Love, for example, was about this girl who curiously I kept falling in love with every 2 years. So it was like I first met her, I really liked her, I asked her out. The date didn't happen because she called to cancel that day, and she was on my mind for a long time. I forgot about her, I was with someone else. That ended. After that next relationship ended, 2 years later, I was playing a gig, and this girl shows up at the gig, and all I can think about was her at that point, and that night again, I kind of felt even stronger for her. And then, the question in my head was, how is it that after 2 years, one can have such strong feelings for someone all over again, So that was the question. It's like, that was me asking myself that question. What we did was we used that occasion of the gig, where she showed up at the gig, and put that into lyrics in the bridge section, where there were, of course, a lot of women who were, looking at me that day, but I only had eyes for her, So we put that into the bridge section. So this was actually an experience. And for me, what I found about songwriting is, unless you've been there, unless you've experienced that emotion, it's you can't write it really. It comes across as less than genuine.
Yeah, I'm sure it lends a lot of honesty to the narrative.
Exactly. Yeah.
Now there's a popular narrative that links heartbreak and creativity. Do you think that's true?
I think it, heartbreak can be a trigger. It can really, it can be a catalyst of sorts. But I think, creativity just comes from a much more, mysterious place. It's like, I don't know. There are some days I just can't, I can't write anything. I can't create anything. And there are other days, if I was constantly going through heartbreak, I would need help, to basically do what I do. And I have to find creativity from other sources, from other inspirations. One cannot rely on heartbreak alone. Otherwise, the moment you find a more permanent relationship, that's it. Your career is over, right? So you can't rely on that. Your motivations to write songs should be to just develop as an artist, I think. If that is your aim, it's to express yourself, it's to be this artist, is to develop your songwriting. If that is your aim, then you will continue writing. But don't just rely on heartbreak. I stopped relying on it. No.
Any artists that have inspired you to practice music and write?
I think very early on, I was mostly into, good guitar playing. I was listening to Eric Clapton and his Unplugged session at MTV and trying to play all of that. And I was listening to Joe Satriani and I was playing that. We actually opened at Independence Rock as a band, and I was playing. I opened Independence Rock with Satriani's Summer Song. So I was a guitar player then. So like from the flashy guitar playing to then toning it down and becoming more of a singer-songwriter. There was Sting who came into the picture. So I was a big fan. I still am a big fan of Sting, and he has some incredible songwriting along with some really intricate melodic and chordal work. So I just dove right into his body of work. And my second big influence after him, I think, would have been Jeff Buckley, which I think you've been reading up, so you probably know that. And yeah, with Jeff Buckley, it was a very curious time in my life because I was just in the third year of now 3 jobs in 3 years. And this was the third one. And I was finally at a point where I was feeling like the corporate life is not for me, And that was exactly the moment when I found Jeff Buckley's music. It was in some, at that point we used to just take music from each other on hard drives and everything, folders. And we didn't have streaming like Spotify and all that stuff. We had Napster and we had all these other things, Kazaa, whatever, So I discovered there was a folder called Jeff Buckley, and then I opened that. It was just a random selection. So I was listening to it, and suddenly, I heard something that I wanted to be. I was like, wow, he's instrumentally telling a story, and then over it, it's mostly through the through voice modulations and all of that. It's like such an evocative voice, just sailing over those chord progressions, and that's what I wanted to do. I was like, this is what I want to do. And I figured that there was a lot of depth to his music. He was not just playing in standard tuning on the guitar. He was actually changing all those tunings and playing the guitar like a completely different instrument. So I was inspired to now try those things on the guitar as well. So he was a huge influence because it came in at the right time. It came in at a pivotal time in my life where I could have continued being a corporate slave, and at that point, listening to this was like, this is what I want to do. I mean, not necessarily just, sing Jeff Buckley songs. I mean, I wanted to, create interesting music from that point. And I said, I'm going to quit my job, come back to Bombay and do it. So these people, I think Sting and Jeff Buckley have been the biggest influences. In the middle, there were, people like, say, Damien Rice also, who I was listening to quite a lot. Radiohead. At least these were the big ones.
Right. While I was doing a little bit of my research on the internet, and this question just popped up. What is it about Jeff Buckley that a lot of people have been inspired by him? There's Adele, there's Lana Del Rey, there's Chris Martin, there's you, and a lot of musicians have said that. So I'm just trying to theorize, what is it about Jeff Buckley that inspires so many music artists?
I think with Jeff Buckley, there was an intensity that no one's really been able to match. There was something in his voice which was so vulnerable, and you knew it came from a real place. And if you then read his story, you would know that it definitely did come from a real place. It came from his father having abandoned him as a child. And his father himself was a very, very popular folk musician. At the time of like Dylan, etc., he was kind of the standout guy. He was writing stuff way beyond his time. So Jeff Buckley was trying to follow in his footsteps in a way, but the abandonment issues and everything were there. And so he was very self-destructive also. So a lot of people looking at, you're talking about not just these songs, but also knowing that this person was extremely fragile,
Right.
So I think that, when a musician like say me or any other musician who's been inspired by him, had first listened to him, you're really moved at a deep level listening to this guy, because you can tell the depth of emotion there, and he's captured it in that album of his.
Right.
It was one of the most, I think, influential albums of, at least, of all time, at least for me. Yeah.
Do you have a writing habit? Do you have a writing practice like a lot of other writers do? Maybe something like sitting at the desk for 1 hour every day, or something along those lines?
No, I really don't. I don't do that at all. I think, early on in my life, of course, I used to spend hours and hours and hours just trying to play a song and sing something to the T. I used to, be obsessive about it. But much later on, like even now, it's like it happens when it happens. The moment needs to feel right. Just a few weeks ago, for example, I was going through my phone listening to some ideas, and I came across an idea from 2016. And it was just one line. It was, like I said, it was like a pre-chorus or a chorus line. And that was the moment, now 4 years later, where I said, wow, this makes sense. I love this melody. I have to write it. So I shut everything off, all my distractions, and sat with it. And I wrote the song in pretty much 1 hour. So it's all about, the time and the right time for it. And, I think it's pointless to force yourself. It's pointless to do that. But if I fully understand, though, I think some people have a discipline, and they kind of, write because they know it is work, and you say, I will assign this time to myself as work every day. If that works for them, great. But I think I would just rebel against myself, because that's the kind of person I am. I'd make an excuse and then go out somewhere or something like that, just to myself.
Right. But I'm guessing you live with your ideas for really long. Even if you're not consciously writing them, you're still living with them in your head.
Oh yeah. So like I said, sometimes there's a melody that crops up in my mind, and I put it down on the phone. But I let that just sit in there for weeks sometimes. It's like, and I'm singing that every now and then. And then it's like, then what happens is sometimes you come up with another idea which might feel a little different, but then works like a verse. So then you put that together along with this, and now you have at least half a song. So that's how other these ideas happen as well, like the songwriting. That's what I mean. If there's anyone watching who writes songs or is like interested in stuff like this, don't lose your ideas. Just find an effective way of recording them and listening back to them, and name them properly, based on the mood or something. I name stuff based on what I think it might sound like. Like if it sounds like Jeff Buckley would have sang the song, I would have said Jeff Buckley maybe, or Jeff Buckley in the evening, or something like that. Just to, so what it kind of is. Anyway, so that's what I do.
I've read that you're not very fond of the idea of genres. Like you do not want to fit into tight compartments.
Well, that's, I think a lot of artists don't want to be genreified. They don't like this idea of, calling someone an acoustic singer-songwriter. Because see, the biggest, I think the biggest misnomer, like these acoustic singer-songwriter, people say acoustic, and they imagine you'll be sitting with an acoustic guitar and playing your songs. It doesn't necessarily have to be like that. A song is a song, and it's just a style. Sometimes you choose to play it on the acoustic, but I could work the same thing with an electronic artist, a producer, and come up with something. And then, and then people might say that, oh, this person is now getting like, away from what they were, and they're letting us down. But it's not like it's sometimes you feel that the song might be better expressed as an electronic number, as as a song just with a bass guitar playing in the back and you're singing over it. Maybe the best way to present that song. So I don't like genres because they tend to give people ideas about what the instrumentation might be, and I don't like being placed in that box, you know, of instrumentation or genre, whatever you want to call it.
Before we move ahead, I just wanted to tell you that People has been one of my favorite tracks, and it's so reassuring, and even the video, it's so wholesome. I think it was able to hold space for all of us during this lockdown.
Well, thanks. That's really nice to know, and I'm glad you felt that way. And yeah, it was a lot of hard work for a lot of us, you know, especially the guys who made the video, Ruhi Mori and Suraj Vanwari. I mean, I don't think they'd be listening to this right now, but the fact is they pulled it off all on their own, and yeah, you know, it's great that, you know, people step up and they kind of help you out during these times as artists, you know.
Right.
And I would love to see more of that happen. I would love to see, you know, people collaborating with each other without the promise of, you know, big stacks of money on the table. It's like, you know, this is the way great art sometimes is created.
Right. Did you have the same interpretation? Did you also interpret it as a lockdown song?
No, at that time, so the song was written much before. The song was actually written in maybe early 2019, I think. That was, or 2018, was it? Yeah, it was 2018 actually. So at that time, I wanted to write a song that was definitely not a love song, because I'd written so many. I was in you know, a writing process at that time when I was with Warner Music. So I was going through like 3-4 months of just songwriting, and in studios and out like every other day. And I was kind of tired at that point of drawing on my heartbreak experiences, you know. I wanted to write something else, and the thing on my mind at that time was how the world was really changing. We were 2 years into the Trump administration, and a few years into our administration also. And the thing is, you know, it's instead of looking around and seeing the world becoming a better place, you see it increasingly become, you know, less tolerant and more divisive, you know. And so I wanted a song about how, you know, it's really simple. It's about you and me, you know. At the end of it, it's that's what it is. I just need to respect your right to live. And the best example of that is about how when children are together on a playground, they don't see economic backgrounds, they don't see color of skin, they just want to have fun. So they are our best examples of how to approach, you know, our relationships. Yeah, so that was the idea.
Lovely. I hope you're aware of the fact that every house party playlist starts with Sham Bhi Koi Jaise Hai Nadi. So how did that Bollywood break happen?
So that's an interesting story. So like I said, you know, I had finished with that third job in 3 years, and I came back to Bombay. And at that point, you know, all I wanted to do was two things. I needed, you know, to explore my independent music, which I'd come back to do, and I needed a commercial side to make some money. So to do the commercial side, to make money, I, you know, put out, you know, voice samples and everything. I gave them to music directors and all of that. And I got my first break for an Airtel ad. And that was, it had Saif Ali Khan and Kareena Kapoor in it and everything. And that was playing on the TV, and it was on YouTube. And a lot of people thought it was Atif Aslam. You know, there were like these India-Pakistan wars going on that ad, like, you know, saying Atif, this is not Atif, this is Atif. Anyway, coming to the point, it's like Amit Trivedi heard that ad. I mean, he saw it on TV and he heard the voice and he said, okay, this is a fresh voice. Who's this person? He got my number, he called me. And at that point, I was a little skeptical. You know, I wasn't ready to explore film yet, because my idea of film music at that time is just, you know, the same 80s influenced rock and whatever. And also, it seems like you need to have a classical grounding and be a classical singer. You know, and also my control of my pronunciation in Hindi and all was absolutely appalling at that time. So I explained this to him on the phone, and I said, you know, I might not be your typical Bollywood singer. He said, it doesn't matter, just come. You know, I just want to try this out. So I went to the studio, and he said, okay, this is the song, and he played it for me. And for me, it was the most non-Bollywood song I'd heard until that point. You know. And I said, oh, okay, let me take a crack at this. And he gave me the lyrics, and I literally sang from that lyric sheet into the mic. And within a couple of takes was pretty much what they used for the final song. So that was my big break. And even actually, a lot of people don't know is that a lot of people in from the film were convinced that they wanted some other voice, a more established voice to sing it, because there were certain pronunciations and things that you can tell is like, was this very Western sounding guy? But actually it was Amit who stood up for me, and he said, no, this is the voice I want. And Riya Kapoor as well was like, this is what we want, and that's what we're going to go with. So I'm glad that this happened at that time, and that was my entry into film. And one thing led to another. There was Anjana Anjani, there was Mere Bina from Crook that came out the same year. That's where the commercial side of things really picked up for me, I think.
Right, and then you went on to give some most amazing tracks of Bollywood, be it like Har Kisi Ko Nahi Milta, then Alvida from D-Day. How did things change once you started being a part of the Bollywood ecosystem, professionally and personally?
So on the professional front, there was a conflict actually for me at that point, because pretty much everyone who gets into Bollywood with the intention of becoming a playback singer, and to then perform those songs on stage, and every other song along with it, and make your living that way by being a stage singer, because that's the only place, that's where money is. You don't make money singing in the studio. It's usually a token fee, or it's nothing at all, So when I walked into the studio and like I was, going to Preetham's studio and everything, they were quite surprised that I was charging them for it. I was giving them an invoice saying I'm billing you this much and everything. Because for them, the typical Bollywood singer is just coming up and saying, please give me a song, and I would love to sing it. So the conflict was basically, I was singing these big songs, but when it came to stage performance and being an artist, I wanted to perform my songs. And those songs were not even in Hindi, they were in English. So there's a big gap over there. So initially, I was not even doing stage shows because I didn't want to sing typical Bollywood songs on stage. I wanted to sing my songs. So, we would not get the gig because of that. Then much later, say by 2014 and 2015, I started singing some of those Bollywood songs on stage. Finally, after like 4 years or 5 years. But we try to make deals with promoters where I would perform half the Bollywood song, and I'm half Bollywood songs and half my independent stuff.
Right.
But that also wasn't working. I found there was a huge disconnect with the audience. Every time we did an English song of mine, the audience we were losing the audience. And then we'd play like Mere Bina, and suddenly they're all back. Then play an English song and they're gone. So at that point, I realized I had to create two separate identities. One was the Bollywood singer, and and then the other was the English stuff, my indie stuff, which usually was just I could just perform them at venues in Bombay or the metros. So that's what happened. Yeah.
Right. If you could bring one.
And you said on the personal front as well, right? Yeah. I think you said personal.
Yeah, right.
On the personal front, I think the only thing was, my parents, for example. So they didn't really understand what I do at that time. For them it was music. They didn't understand Bollywood singer, this, that, whatever. I would just come home with a sack of money and say, I've gone for a live show, here's the money. And for them it was like, okay, whatever this is. So it was, for my parents, it was like when we went, say, to my cousin's wedding in Bangalore, and they treated me like a celebrity because they knew what these songs were. Right. And suddenly my mom was seeing everybody treating me like this hero, and for her, that was when she was like, oh yes, that is my son. Before that, she was even like hesitant to tell anybody what I do as such, because, imagine a musician getting drunk in the corner and like, a loser type. She thought maybe that was the perception of musician. So anyway, that was, I think, one thing. They started accepting what I do as a profession. Coming from, doing a post-grad degree in geology to this, they didn't really understand, but then they finally got it after a few years.
Right. This post-grad degree in geology, tell me a little bit about that, because you worked on multiple oil rigs before you joined music.
Yeah. Well, the thing about geology, to be honest, is it seemed like the easiest subject, to do, to just get done with college. So there was physics and chemistry and biology, and I tried all of that, and I was like, no, it's too much. With geology, it was like, oh, we're just studying a few rocks, right? So, and then it seemed easy. So geology is super easy in the first 2 years. And then they hit you with the big break, which is actually like, the whole scope of the subject, which is very vast.
Yeah.
So I did that. Did my postgrad degree, and the only option for any student here, literally, other than research, is to get into oil rigs. So that's what I did. I joined, oil rigs, and I thought. I'd have a future in front of me and everything. I worked on an oil rig in Japan. I remember on literally my second or third day, I almost lost my hand. Working at one big machine of sorts called the shale shaker, I nearly lost my hand. And that's when reality hit me, and I was like, what do I really want? Do I want to be able to be, to do this, or go back and do music or something else, So that's when I think the seed of that thought got into my head. And as it happened, 2 years later, I was back into the music scene.
I wanted to ask you, so what is that one reform that you would like to bring in Bollywood?
There are many that I would like to bring about.
I'm all ears, yeah.
The time that I sang Sham for Aisha, if that situation was to happen today, I would never even be called to sing for that film, because the music directors at this time don't have the freedom of selecting what singers they want. Also, they can try them out, whatever, but it's not their call at the end. Now it is the call of the labels, and sometimes even the big management companies who have artists under them, who have the say. And what I would like to see, the big reform I would like to see, is that music being a pure thing. It is pure, it is something that comes from the heart. It is creative. Leave those decisions to the creative people, the ones who create it. Leave it with the music director who's composed the song. Leave it to the director of the film whose vision it is. That's where the decision used to be made, say, right up to maybe 2013, 14. After that, it all went into the hands of the labels, and also now even management companies. So like we've seen a big change there, and that's why you listen to music these days and you're like, why is it sounding like it's not really inspiring me? Because the people who make the decisions are uninspired themselves. So that is the reform I would like to see. Other than that, I would like to see producers open up more to the idea of using independent artists and their music. Just license the song for film, because it exists. Just take it, put it in your film, it's done. Yeah, they still go to, the established music directors and ask them to kind of get it done. And, maybe that director will buy it from independent artists, but then cut them out of it and put someone else to sing it. So I would like to see that, producers go directly to an independent artist and license the song. Yeah, I think that's two things that I would like to see.
Yeah, it so happens in Hollywood, right? That's how things work in Hollywood.
Yeah, that's how it's traditionally happened in Hollywood. Unless the music itself is a crucial part of the film, is a part of the script. Like if it's the song, like if it's a story about Johnny Cash, for example,
right.
That's different. Like if it's a story about a songwriter or whatever, then the songs are a crucial part of it. But otherwise, this is the model that they followed. Is they have so many songs. They just have to figure out which one to place where.
Right. In closing, I would like to ask you, what are those 5 adjectives that describe you the best?
I think mysterious, but not quite. I would say kind. I would like to describe myself as I think I might just be. Objective, and that's 3, right?
Yeah.
Mostly quite bored, and then also easily entertained.
Wow. Lovely. So once again, so thank you so much for having this conversation. I had a lovely time, and all the best for all your future endeavors.
Thanks so much. Thank you. My pleasure. Thanks.
Yeah.
Subscribe to our YouTube channel and never miss an update on film interactions.